Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's April 10th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and really, this is a range day. The overnight highs were right here, and we got above that consistently today, but you can see we were still ranging from top to low. So at some point, you probably would have just moved your line up higher, and for some reason, my lines disappeared. There it is. You can see the overnight highs there. And eventually you would have moved this line up higher where you get more consistent touches and really right along in that level. I mean, that's what makes this a little bit more difficult is there's not really a consistent level up there. What you want to see technically is it turning down at the same price level every time or turning up at the price level, same price level every time off the lows. But you can see here we just consistently or inconsistently made highs here. We never made a consistent high, but that's where I would have started the day actually at those closes. And I think by the end of the day we got more touches and moves right along there, so that's where I ended up leaving it as the day progressed. But it just makes it kind of a odd day, and now my line has disappeared at the bottom. I'm not sure what's going on with my lines here. I'll just put a new one on there. But you can see the lows coming across there, and we actually went lower than that later in the day as well. So none of these lines were very consistent, but you can see that we're basically inside the highs and lows of the day. We're mostly going sideways is the point I'm trying to make. This is just a range day. So, and now my lines disappeared again. I don't know what's going on with my chart here. Now it's back. Maybe it had something to do with it. Now there's two lines down here, so maybe it has something to do with me moving in and out. But you could see it there. I'm going to back on out, and hopefully everything shows up now. And we'll go through the trades. But we really just didn't get a consistent high or low is the point I was trying to make. Early on we had a trend working down, then we had a trend working up, then we had another trend working down, and then another trend that was really working up. And you can see most of the shorts are off these highs up here, these high points, and most of your buys, there's not a lot of buys today because we never came back to this low very often. And so you just didn't get a lot of opportunity to buy today. And where you got to be really careful is kind of in the middle here. So if you don't have a consistent trend line, you don't want to be coming down here. Notice we did have a fairly consistent trend line, but when we started going up here, we never had a consistent trend line to really buy off of. So that's the reason you don't see a lot of buys for that point. You had one here, and so you got a few buys, but it's just a interesting kind of day, a very different kind of day, to be honest with you. We trended up and then just went sideways, and really for the rest of the day, we just kind of went up and down inside those levels that I have marked with a blue line. Actually, you really can't even say that off the highs because we kept bouncing outside of it. We'd make higher highs, but we really, prices wouldn't continue to move higher. They'd turn back down again. So anyway, let's talk about the trades and we'll wrap today up. First trade I saw was the confirmation of this upper trend line. Notice that we were just kind of going sideways, but we came back to that trend line, had a nice bearish move. But more than that, we also had all this resistance across here. So it's a little failed break higher, but the big key is that it confirms that trend line there and turns prices down. So I like going short right there. And I just treated it like a failed break higher basically, and a turn down off that trend line. And then we go back down and we're just kind of going sideways. So stay out of that. And then we come back up once again and we turn down at that trend line. We got a little close outside. So this might be a turning point, but again, I just treated that like a failed break higher. And there's a little small bar. It's one of the smallest bars we've seen lately, as you can see right there. Nice place to go short. Just looking to ride it back to this side again, pretty much where the support has been. And if you get anything more, that's great. And it does turn out that it's a pretty nice move in the end. And then we just start going sideways again. And so once again, I'm not crazy about entering here. You need a little bar at the high that's bearish, or a little bar at the low. And we already had a break here and a couple of moves down, so I was real hesitant. This is just a first entry too, even though there are two legs up. So I was a little hesitant on that one. I think you were better off just to kind of wait. And then we finally push down and come back, and we're actually going higher here. This one breaks higher and turns and goes out the other side. I like going short there on the other side just because you know you probably trap some people here. But I don't think I would have waited for that bar to finish and then go short. And even if you did, you may not have got filled because it gapped across there. Notice those bars don't overlap and it just kept going. So I don't think you could have gotten filled on that one with a sell stop below that bar. You pretty much had to let it go higher, and then when it turned down, have your limit order, sell order already there. If you did that, I'm okay with that one. But it's right into a double bottom, and we've had some lows there before, even though your major low is over here. So I'm not crazy about it. We finally got a little better second entry here. Okay, sorry I had a little interruption, but yeah, there's a second entry here. Again, notice we came back and we tested this level once. We came back and tested again, and it almost looks a little like a repeat, except this is a second entry. There's a new low, first entry, second entry. So I like going short there if it breaks lower, and it does. And quick, easy scalp, and then it reverses. And notice what happens. We come up, make a higher low. That's a fairly bearish bar. I went back and forth about this one, but notice we've got a low. We tested it twice, then we make a higher low, and it's right here at this support resistance area. And so we're probably going to go higher right there. If it breaks higher, we're probably going to go higher. And of course it does, and you can see how it rocketed up. You're going to catch some people, all these shorts that are probably going to exit. You're going to catch some people that got short in here that didn't scalp out that are going to have to exit. So if it breaks higher right there, you can expect exactly what happened to probably happen, because all these people are going to exit. And so off it goes. But notice that we have a new low here, and then you got a first entry, and then your second entry. You really have a second entry short here, but you don't want to go long right into that possible upper trend line. So when it comes on down and it bounces right off the EMA, right off the trend line, and notice how you got those first couple of swings there, and it confirms that swing. Notice how it closes inside. I just basically treated that like a failed second entry short. Again, technically it's not, because you broke lower here first and then broke lower again right there. So technically it is not a second entry. However, there's also a little matching lows there, so you've got a little bit of a double bottom. So then you can still say first entry short, second entry short, and even though it has another little higher low there, you haven't broke higher yet. So it really didn't become a failed second entry short counting off that low until here. So that there are a couple different ways you could look at that one, but this was the one I really liked, counting it as a new low there, which anytime you got a double bottom, you really can. And so if you treat that like a failed second entry short, and you're probably going to get at the minimum, I'd be looking for another leg up. I'd measure from here first, and you look for a measured leg, and you can see we got up in there and we've started to find some resistance there, but that's also the overnight high. And so that's anytime you get a measured move to that point, there's a good chance you may be going there. And so I liked it for that reason. We did come back to the trend line here, but you're right into those highs. No, you don't want to be going long right into those highs, because it's probably going to act more as a failed. It's right into the overnight high there. As you can see, it's probably going to fail if anything, and it does. Only problem, that is a perfect doji, so I didn't think that was a good enough bar. There is a lower high here, but again, you got 2 or 3 bars stacked up. It went higher first, and then it couldn't break out the low side. You could have technically shorted that right there. You probably could argue for that to be green, because it is a failed break higher, but I think you're better off to wait personally. but it is a lower high after a failed break higher, so I'll mark it green. There's some of it that might, and it's also right into the EMA, so a little bit of concern there. But notice what happens. It pushes up one more time, and it actually goes higher here and turns and goes out the low side. And look at that big bearish bar. As soon as it went out the other side, being that far away from the EMA, I'd probably have a a limit sell order there waiting on it. But even then, you could still put a sell stop right there because you're still a little bit away from the EMA. And this is really looking like this trend is over now. You had a little break outside here at a new high, but a lot of times you'll get two legs up, and that's what happened here. You got one leg, then a little two-legged correction, then a second leg up. And I believe they're pretty much measured legs. We'll just measure them and see. Just eyeball it. It looks really close. You can see that. Maybe it went an extra, maybe an extra tick there. And then you just head back down. Bounces again, and we're just kind of going sideways here. So I was really hesitant to take any of these. You did notice you did make this real low and then this lower low, and then you move up. You get a first entry short, you get a second entry short, and there's basically a little double bottom right there, and it breaks lower and it gives you a bullish bar. So you might consider that one again. And treat it like a failed second entry short, but I'm not crazy about it right into that previous high, those previous highs, even though we've pushed through there several times now. So you really would consider your high a little bit, probably up here by that point. And looking at it like that, you've got plenty of room. And it just runs up and then it fails. And I really don't, again, I don't see a way to enter this one, a good way to enter it, because that's a relatively bullish bar, and the bottom just look how the bottom falls out. And what happens here is now they've got all these people that got along, and they realize, hey, it's not going any higher, and it starts rocketing down, and they all got to exit, and that's what you get. And so you trapped a bunch of people up here, and the smart traders that had gotten long along the way up decide, hey, I'm gonna get out before I lose all my profit. Then it comes back, and you get your little trend line here. You really got a confirmation of it here, but that bar ends very neutral. The next one's got stems on both sides. So I'd wait on the next one that comes back. And really, that's a new swing high. So there's a first entry, second entry, nice bearish bar. Everything's inside that trend line. And then this is a double top, so you could also count it as a new high, first entry, second entry. So you got a failed second entry long here, and you could go short there. You actually come back to the trend line. Notice how we're working down that trend line, and then you get it confirmed here, and this went higher, and the big bearish bar. I like going short there too, because I would be looking at that point at least for a measured move like so. And you can see that puts prices way down here. And so you still got plenty of room, and this thing just keeps going. You figure if it came off the top, it's probably going to go to the bottom. It overshot the top, and then it overshoots the bottom as well. So that turned out to be a nice trade right there. And what I'd be concerned about more than anything is this little lows here, but you got enough room to get out there. So you're okay going short there, in my opinion. Then we get your bounce from the low here. Okay, I'm sorry, I got interrupted again there. Probably didn't notice it on your end, but I think we talked about this trade. And then you're just looking for a chance to, you don't really get a chance to get long, but we did get an overshoot of this channel here, or at least you assume you did. That's what I was using for the low, but maybe it's over here. And if so, you don't really have an overshoot. So you got to be careful on this short here, but notice how this just runs up, and we're way past the EMA, way overdue, and you get a lower high here with a very bearish bar right at that trend line again. So I like going short there, hoping maybe you get another leg down, but you get a scalp out of it, but it ends up bouncing. And this stuff is just too sideways here. I don't see any reason to try to enter this. You do get a little failed break here, and it went lower and turns up, but by the time you were able to get in here, you're really close to the highs again. I don't have my lines on here. Let me put them on there. So you're really just better off to stay out of that. You can see that, and then we break higher, and then we're just going sideways again, and there's no clear highs or lows here. It's just kind of bouncing around. So again, I don't think you want to enter any of this. And it's, you draw your trend line here. It is working up, and you probably could consider there's a shorter term trend line in here, but I didn't draw any of them. I think you're better off just to skip all that because there's no real rhyme or reason to it. We end up making higher highs and higher lows for a little bit here, but by the time you've really got that's really clear, you're way up here across this upper side, and you don't want to be entering, long up here. So there is the only problem here. There is a higher low here, and the problem is you just came off the high, so you'd expect it to go to the low, and there's probably a midline in there, but I just think you're better off to sit tight. And then of course it makes a new high, then it tries to go higher, and it breaks higher first and turns and goes out the other side. We're overdue to come back to the EMA and probably the other side of the trend line, and once again the thing just takes off like a rocket and goes straight on down through that trend line. And then same thing, it bounces and goes straight back up. The market just has no direction by this point. Nobody knows. I mean, it's hard to say what's happening or where it's going. And I think you just want to be really careful how entering in any direction here. And we did just come off the lows, so you would expect it to be trying to work to the highs, but you don't expect this to happen. So, but it ends up going back to the highs before it works down. So the price action still valid to a degree, but at another aspect, it's this crazy volatility that just makes it very questionable. So after a big move like that, you could get another leg down, but instead you end up getting another big leg up, and that's just not very characteristic of price action. So you may consider going long down here just because you're so far away from the EMA, and that's a relatively bearish bar, but it could break up higher here and just keep going. So you don't know what it's going to do. So I really don't recommend that trade, but that's the first break of this. This is like a spike in channel, and that's the first break of it. So technically by the rules, you're going to get a move up, but this trend line here really hasn't played out. That's the first close outside of it. Doesn't matter, it just keeps going. So it's difficult to read price action. That makes it questionable to try to go long there. You get a higher low here, but look how far you've moved, and you're not back to the EMA really. You don't have a new high in place, but you're right there at those highs, so I don't like going long there. And then finally you get up here to the high, you break higher, then you get a first entry long, you're moving down, you get a second entry long, it fails, and then you get a nice bearish bar. It didn't really matter what that bar looked like. You could go short there. Your stop still has to go above that high, but I like going short there. Just hoping now you go to the other side. You get a pretty nice move. Comes back to the trend line yet again, and you get another bearish bar. It broke higher and turned and went out the other side. That's a really big bar, but it still fits the rules. And with the volatility we've got, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of small bars, so you may still enter there. It's a quick, easy move, and then you're expecting it to come down to the other side, and it just goes higher again. So this is really just sideways action working back and forth by this time. So you could probably work it either way. However, I'd be more confident going short up here because we've turned down so many times, versus the middle of the section is where you got to be worried and getting long into the highs or short into the lows. So that's why this one's green, and that's why that one's green instead of blue. Well, there's some other reasons I already talked about, but on that one. But this is a failed second entry short. Notice that low, and you go short once, and you go up and you go short twice, and it did push through. And that pattern's been so good to us for the last week or so. So for that reason, I did mark that one green, and it would have worked like it has pretty much consistently. But it's late in the day, and we're right into the highs, and so I wasn't going to give it a blue one. And that was pretty much it. That got us in the 2 o'clock hour. So kind of an odd day, but you're going to have days like this. So even in this fairly tight range day, there's still some crazy volatility. So which crazy volatility is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just if you're not used to it, it can throw you off quickly. But the big movement's really a good thing because it gives us a chance to make more money. So you just have to read it properly. It makes it a little harder to read because it moves faster. And somebody asked me about going to a bigger chart. There's no problem at all going to a bigger chart. Just remember your bars may be that much bigger too, but it will slow it down for you. You know, if you want to get it back to where it takes 3 to 5 minutes per bar, then make your chart 2,500 or 3,000. Just know that most of your bars are going to be a lot bigger too. So that's the only downfall to doing that. But honestly, you may be better to have it slow it down and take more risk with your stop and try to get more profit than you would be to try to go to the smaller bars and reduce your risk and profit, but at the same time be moving so fast that you're making a lot of mistakes and misreading it. So there's pluses and minuses to doing it either way. I'm just sticking with the 2,000 and playing it like I have been, but you have the option to try those other things. I wouldn't try it live with my real money if you haven't been doing it. If you want to do it on sim just to get used to it and try it, more power to you. Just, you know, because you can't hurt yourself, and it gives you some experience with something new and gives you something new to study on your trades and so forth. So just don't do it live unless you've done it before live and you've proven you can do it. That's the key. So keep that in mind. But anyway, interesting day to say the least. Not my favorite day, but not the worst day by any stretch of the means either. So hopefully you had a decent day and this didn't mess you up too bad. Just remember, the key is when you're on these range days, which that's what this is, just a big volatile range, is that, you know, you look to get short at the highs and you try to get long at the lows, and you try to find the trends, solid trends that work up and down between the lows and the highs. And that's really, if it's a big enough range like it was today, you can get some fairly nice trends. And if you can catch one of them, you can get a good trade out of it. But most of it's going to be trying to get short at the highs or long at the lows. And we didn't have a whole lot of chance to get long at the lows because in the middle is where you got to be really careful. In the middle, without a solid trend line, can really throw you off. So when it starts going sideways like this in the middle, just stay out of it, sit tight, and wait and see what happens. That's my suggestion anyway. That's my strategy. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.